Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking to you in my basement in the great state of Kansas. Today's video, I decided I was going to do my top 10 favorite movies from the 1940s, from that decade. Usually, I've been doing a live stream to talk about my top 10 of the decade, but I decided this time I'll just shoot a video, a little quicker to do, don't have to set up as much. And yeah, I'll try to get these as quick as I can to get through this video, but yeah, hopefully give you some good recommendations from this decade here on Jason the Old Millennial. Hello, hope everybody's doing well here on a Friday night. Yeah, and this time I'm going to go through the decade of the 1940s. I've covered all the decades from the 2010s onward. I've done these live streams on all the decades, kind of going through a lot of honorable mentions and then doing my top 10 favorite movies of that decade and really going in depth of why I like these movies so much. This time I'm going to try to do this as a video so it doesn't take so long, because usually those live streams takes hours, of course, because you have more time to spend. So I'll try to get through these in this video. Covering 1940, still a really great decade of movies, I think. When I look at my list, it's mostly comedies, I would say. I definitely go more towards the lighthearted family comedies of this decade, and not so much for, there's a couple of serious movies on here, but I have to admit, I don't go for the serious movies as much during this time period. And I do like the innocence of this time period. Like I said, the very family-friendly type movies, very wholesome, and very patriotic, of course, because this is a decade where we're going through World War II, so that's definitely on everybody's mind. So definitely some World War II pictures on my list dealing with that subject matter. Obviously, it's an interesting decade because some of our famous, most big actors disappeared throughout the decade because they enlisted in the army. That's how patriotic everybody was. Even the actors were enlisting in the army. Can you imagine actors enlisting in the army today to go fight in war? No actor would do that today. But back then, it was a different time period. So a lot to say about that. There's two movies I can think of on top of my mind that's not on my list that's definitely going to be missing. And one is Citizen Kane, which is considered the greatest movie of all time. AFI, it's number one. A lot of lists is going to be up there. I don't know. I've never been a big fan of Citizen Kane. Like, it's an okay movie. Great ending. The Rosebud thing, great. I love that. Acting's fine. I don't know. Just a little boring to me. I'm not excited. I'm not as interested in the whole story. Other one is Casablanca, which I've talked about on when I talked about my ranking the best picture winners, recently. I don't know. It's just one that I've never been too excited about. Again, just a little boring for me, a little slow moving. Good acting and everything, but I don't know, just not one that excites me as much as a lot of these. So hopefully you'll hear these recommendations. Hopefully you'll check them out. If you haven't, if you're like 1940s, that's too old. Obviously they're all black and white movies, but still a great decade of movies. I still say go back and watch these, even though they're fairly old, way before my time, before my parents' time. These were my grandparents. These are the movies my grandparents were watching when they were, younger. Anyways, but yeah, so saying that, I guess I'll go through some honorable mentions. I usually go through those first when I do these. So couple honorable mentions, or not couple, but several here. One I got is Road to Morocco, really funny comedy with Bob Hope and Bing Crosby. My favorite of the Road to movies. Definitely check it out. Great comedy. Life with Father, another really good comedy with William Powell. It's like second to last movie he ever did. One of the last big roles he ever did. Got nominated actually for Best Actor for the role. You also see a young Elizabeth Taylor in this movie. But yeah, really good movie, Life with Father. We got The Shop Around the Corner in the early 40s. One of Jimmy Stewart's early ones after he won the Oscar for Philadelphia Story. I think he did this one. It's a nice kind of Christmas. Also, there's a lot of good Christmas movies from this decade. I have a couple of good classic Christmas movies, actually. Like Shop Around Corners around that time period, a kind of Christmas style movie, romantic comedy. I think really nice. I love Jimmy Stewart though. He's one of my favorite actors. I got Sullivan's Travels. Really interesting screenplay. Definitely gets some twists in there. It's not really comedy or romantic comedy necessarily. It's a fairly serious movie, but I think a really well done movie that you definitely should check out. Holiday Inn is a decent musical with Bing Crosby and Fred Rogers, or Fred Astaire. Yeah, Fred Astaire. State Fair is another musical that I quite enjoy from this time period. A couple of musicals here. Anchors Away and On the Town. Two with, I know Gene Kelly. I do love Gene Kelly musicals. His dancing is bar none the best. I think even better than Fred Astaire for me. But they're fun, especially On the Town. I think is the one I really, really like that one. I think Frank Sinatra's in that one as well. And then the last one I'm going to talk about honorable mentions is The Three Musketeers. I think actually probably my favorite version of Three Musketeers is from this period. And Gene Kelly is the lead in that. Gene Kelly is absolutely amazing here. The sword fights are really good. I mean, it's interesting watching this from the 1940s and going, wow, this is as good sword fighting as you'll ever see. And a good adaptation of that famous famous book. All right, so get to my top 10. Number 10, I have Yankee Doodle Dandy, which is a music biopic of Jim Cohen, who wrote a lot of musicals and songs. Of course, Yankee Doodle Dandy is a famous musical, and that song you probably heard. He also wrote Over There, is a famous patriotic song about troops having to go over there, fight the war. Really, it's good because he's a very important figure to kind of learn about in history. Like I said, wrote a lot of patriotic songs, a very good patriot, American patriot. And also one of the famous musical and performers, writers, and all that. So it's a good one to check out just to know more about Jim and Cohen. Also, the main actor in this, James Cagney, won Best Actor for this role. So very good role for him. There's some dancing, some singing, there's some comedy, there's some romance. Overall, a very fun movie. Yankee Doodle Dandy, number 10 on my list. Number 9 is my first big Christmas classic that, in my opinion, this is one you should watch every Christmas, and that is Miracle on 34th Street. You got Maureen O'Hara in here. I think is it Dan Andrews in here? I forget. Edmund Gwynn, who plays the Santa Claus, basically plays a guy who plays Santa Claus. Wins the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for playing Santa Claus. Pretty good Santa Claus, one of the great Santa Clauses you'll ever see. You got a young Natalie Wood, cute little girl. But yeah, it's all a movie about, girl doesn't believe Santa Claus, and he's trying to get her to kind of be a kid again and to have fun and learn how to have fun, because she never has fun. She's always too serious. And so also they're trying to put Edmund Gwynn's character into the nut house because he says he's Santa Claus. The best part of the movie is the trial, I think. The whole trial of is he Santa Claus, is he not Santa Claus, and how that goes about. It's a really funny movie. And a real good, heartfelt, though, ending to it. That, again, great Christmas movie. Definitely want to check out every Christmas. Miracle on 34th Street, number 9. Number 8 is a comedy you might not have heard of, but it's one of my mom's favorite movies I grew up watching, and it stars one of my favorite actors. And the movie's called Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House. And Cary Grant plays Mr. Blanding. Also, Myrna Loy is one of my favorite actresses. You'll see her name a couple more times on my list. She's probably my favorite actress of this decade. Myrna Loy is so funny. One of the funniest, I think, actresses. Does so well in these kind of either playing the wife or doing romantic comedy type of stuff. But yeah, also Melvin Douglas, very funny in this movie. Really good actor, but also it's probably the kind of comedy relief in this role. And Cary Grant's always great. He's always funny. He's always one of my favorite actors. And it's a pretty simple little story of this guy who's trying to build his own house, and all these bad stuff happen while he's doing it. Nothing goes right, kind of thing. It's a really good comedy. I highly recommend it. Mr. Blanding Builds His Dream House, and number 8 on my list. Number 7, I talked about actually briefly when I talked about my Best Picture winners, because this didn't win Best Picture, but it's a sequel to a Best Picture winner. It's called The Bells of St. Mary's. The movie that won Best Picture was called Going My Way, and this was the sequel to it, which has Bing Crosby and Ingrid Bergman in it, who won Best Actor and Best Actress the year before for Going My Way and Gaslight. So 2 really good actors in this, and I like Ingrid Bergman plays this nun, and kind of goes through the this parish or whatever, and again, there's always somebody that's trying to make them go bankrupt, I guess, and try to get them to leave. But Bing Crosby's character, he's always very positive character. He's a very good, enjoyable character that you really like. And he's a good sweet talker as well. Also a good singer because of Bing Crosby. But yeah, I don't know, it's a fun movie. It's just good comedy in it. And in the end, it has a really good, heartfelt ending to it that really makes you happy. I don't want to get too much detail of the movie because it's a really good movie. Highly recommend it. Bells of St. Mary at number 7. Number 6 is a Best Picture winner, actually, that I haven't talked about yet. 1942, I believe it came out. And that is Mrs. Miniver, starring Greer Garson as the title character, who wins Best Actress for this movie, which won Best Picture as well. Also, Teresa Wright wins the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. Greer Garson, really good actress, another one of my favorites of this decade. Does a couple of really good roles here. Definitely, I think this is her finest. This is another William Wyler movie. William Wyler is one of my favorite directors. This is one of his 3 Best Picture winners, and I got another one of his Best Picture winners coming up, even higher on the list. But still a very excellent movie, Mrs. Miniver. It kind of takes place during World War II, and it's from England. They're in England, so it takes their point of view of being, attacked by the Germans and them being called to war. And it's about them being bombed and all that, and how Mrs. Miniver kind of keeps everything held together while her husband goes off kind of to war. And so she has to keep the household together during all these bombings and stuff. And so, yeah, really good movie during this time period, because we're talking about 1942. I mean, we're right in the midst of World War II, interesting enough. And yeah, some good dramatic moments in it. It's really more of a drama, I would say. Teresa Wright, love her. She's in another movie I'll talk about in a little bit. She's only in a couple movies that I've seen, but she's one of those actresses. Every time I see her in a movie, I totally fall in love with her. I'm just like, man, I wish I could, marry her. I just totally love her. Her characters are always so sweet. She has such a great smile, innocence about her that you just go, oh, I just love her so much. Anyway, so, and this is one definitely where there's a romantic angle to this where she kind of falls in love with the son of Mrs. Miniver. And yeah, you're totally like, yeah, I would totally fall in love with her if I was if I was there too. But yeah, really good story. Love the ending when they're at church and the church has no roof on it because it's been bombed out from the Germans. And yet they're having a church and the priest is, doing his thing. And it's a great ending to the movie and really good one. Definitely check it out. Mrs. Miniver, number 6. And there's also some other side plots I'm not going to get into right now that I love about the movie. But anyway, so that's number 6. Number 5 is a very kind of movie that's probably not, it's a kind of hidden gem movie that most people probably haven't heard of. It was nominated for Best Picture. That's why I heard about it. But it's called The Oxbow Incident. It stars Henry Fonda, kind of a young Henry Fonda here in the 1940s. Henry Travers has a small part here, which is Harry Morgan. Harry Morgan has a small part here that I really like. Anthony Quinn's in here. Dana Andrews is in here, which I've talked about. Really good performances here, and I love the plot. It has one of the best plots I've ever seen in the movie, and the ending is shocking. Like first time I watched this movie, I was like, okay, how's this going to end? And then what happens, what transpires, it's kind of haunting in a way that you're just like, it leaves you thinking. After the movie's over, you're just thinking like, what did I just see? What happened? How can this, wow, never thought a movie would go that way, especially in 1940s. But just say the plot a little bit is basically Henry Fonda comes into this town. He's kind of an outsider. He's new. I mean, he's traveling through, I think. And a crime has happened in this town when he's there. Somebody was murdered and the cattle was stolen. They believe this farmer was murdered and his cattle were stolen. So they put together a posse basically to go find who did this. And the sheriff isn't in town. But they're saying, we can't wait for the sheriff. This is back kind of the Old West. It's a Western basically. It's like, the old Western style of, let's get a posse and let's go get him and hang him on the nearest tree. You don't wait for a trial. You don't wait for a jury. You just go, we're going to kill him right now. They're guilty. So they should be waiting for the sheriff to, make that decision. But there's a guy who's like a former military, and he kind of heads the group. And so Henry Fonda kind of gets caught up in it and travels with this group to go find, and they find three men with cattle, and so with the cattle that they are looking for. And so they believe these three men are the ones who murdered this farmer. And so they basically tie them up, and they're going to hang them right there. And they say they're innocent, that they didn't murder anybody. And they're pleading their case, basically. And so there's almost a decision of, should we hang them? Should we not hang them? And Henry Fonda, as character, kind of takes the, hey, we don't have enough evidence that they did it, so let's not, be, rash and hang them. So he kind of supports these three individuals that he doesn't think they did it, or there's not enough evidence that they did it. But then everybody else, this mob rule kind of attitude of like, we don't care, we got to hang somebody. Anyways, it's a really cool plot line, and it was interesting, very suspenseful, I would say, because they're like, holy cow, are they going to hang these people? How is somebody going to come in the last minute to save them? Is Henry Fonda going to save them? I don't know. It's a really good story. Really loved it. Acting really good too. Henry Fonda, one of my favorite actors. Really great performance from him as well. So definitely check this out. I really highly recommend this, The Oxbow Incident. If you ever come across it, I really want to get that on DVD at some point. All right, let's take some water here. All right, number 4. One of my favorite comedy franchises, I guess if you want to call it, series of this, it started in the 30s up into the 40s, is this one's called The Thin Man Goes Home. It's actually the 5th of 6 Thin Man movies, starring William Powell and Myrna Loy. Like I said, Myrna Loy. Love Myrna Loy. Love William Powell. Two of my favorite actor and actresses of this decade. Great comedy, and it's in the Thin Man series. It's based on Nick and Nora is the name of this married couple, and Nick is a famous detective, famous homicide detective. And he's kind of retired, but he's still kind of well known. Like wherever he goes, everybody's like, "Oh, that's Nick." Like we know Nick. I forget his last name, but throughout all these movies, like I said, this is the 5th and the 6th movies. That's my favorite of all the Thin Man movies. There's a couple good ones in there, a couple not so good ones in the series, but this one I love a lot. This one, him and his wife, played by Myrna Loy, Nora, go to visit his father and mother in his hometown that he grew up in, and the series. It's always they always are almost like on vacation. Then a murder happens, and then they want him to help solve it, even though it's like, I'm not on duty. And so that's kind of happens in this as well. He's visiting his parents, and then someone gets murdered right in front of him. Basically, gets shot, and so then there's a whole conspiracy thing happening, like who's behind it, and he kind of delves into this kind of the secrets of the town. A couple people have some deep secrets in this town, and anyways, and you kind of don't really know who did it until the very end, and then he gets all of the characters that you meet during the movie into the one room. And then one of the best parts of the movies, and in this movie especially, is he gets everybody in a room, and then he goes through the whole case, and he talks about how each person is involved, and it's like one of these people is the murderer in this room. It's one of those things where like one of you is the murderer, and they're all like, "Oh, I didn't do it," and all this. And then he goes through the case, and it's like you think that person did, but no, they didn't do it, as you usually get. And then eventually he reveals at the end, of course, who he believes did, or he knows who did it. And then that person either runs or tries to, pull a gun, and they have to subdue him anyways. And so it's a great moment in the movie, of course. And what I love about this movie, it's very good comedy, and it's a combination of comedy and also, crime, detective work, which I like. And like I said, William Powell and Myrna Loy are so good together, so good chemistry. They did like 6 or 7 movies together during this time period. They were so good together. Their banter back and forth. Very, very funny. What I love is his father. His father's the doctor. He's like this well-known, renowned doctor in this town. And his father was disappointed that he didn't become a doctor, that Nick became a detective. Even though Nick's like this famous detective, it's not good enough for his father. So his father never really, showed that, being proud of his son, and his work. And so you kind of see that there's kind of this, strained relationship between him and his father. And without spoiling too much, just say at the end, his father is finally proud of him because he discovered, he sees his son at work getting this murder. And that moment where he finally feels, feels that his dad's proud of him. It's such a great moment. It's actually kind of an emotional moment for me when I see it and go, oh, it's kind of a comedy moment, but at the same time, it's like, that's what I love about the character and about the storyline. It's like, oh, he really just wants, to make his dad proud. Anyway, so really good movie, good comedy. If you need to watch any of them, I recommend probably the second movie in the Thin Man series is very good as well. And I want to say the second one and the third one is pretty good. And the fifth one's really good. Anyways, that's Thin Man Goes Home at number 4. Number 3, I actually had this movie, and I've talked about it before on my channel, and it was the Best Picture winner of, I believe, 1946. William Wyler movie called The Best Years of Our Lives, and it deals with 3 soldiers coming home from World War II. The first movie to really deal with that, with, what happens to our soldiers when they come back from war, and they've dealt both physically and mentally with all the hardships of war and the stresses and all that. And you got one, Harold Russell, plays, he was a real soldier that lost his hands in the war, and so he plays a soldier in this movie. He's not an actor, he's a real soldier, and he plays this character who, Homer, I believe his name is, who he comes home and he's lost his hands and he has hooks for hands, and the guy who plays him has hooks for hands, and so he's not acting, that's really him. Anyways, and he won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, which is really cool. Obviously, you felt for the guy because, he lost his hands in the war, and here he's playing a character, and he does give a really good performance here. Has some really great moments. But you also have one guy who's coming back to a wife that he really never knew, and he's having trouble there, and he's dealing with PTSD, he's having nightmares, and then you deal with the Frederick March. Dana Andrews is that character, and then Frederick March coming back to his wife and kids, and yet he feels estranged from them because he's been away from them at war, that he's having a hard time accumulating back to home life. Again, Myrna Loy's in here. I love Myrna Loy. Gives a really good performance, in fact. And you got Teresa Wright, who also plays a really good performance here, who has a romance edge with Dana Andrews' character. Love that. But yeah, it's a really good movie kind of dealing with, what happens to troops when they come back from war and trying to get back into society. So some very good dramatic moments in this movie. Still one I love. I've seen it many times. Still love going back to it. Definitely check this out. Best Years of Our Lives. My number 2 movie is actually a World War I movie that came out in 1941, and that is called Sergeant York, with Gary Cooper playing Sergeant Al York in the movie. York is a real person. He's a war hero during World War I. He helped capture tons of German soldiers when he was there. He was a war hero, like I said, lots of distinguished medals and stuff, and in real life. So it's kind of cool seeing this movie about a real life World War I hero. And Gary Cooper won the Oscar for Best Actor for this role. It was nominated for Best Picture. It was also the highest grossing movie in 1941, which I think is interesting because, of course, you have Citizen Kane from 1941, which is considered the greatest movie of all time, and that didn't win Best Picture. And then you got Sergeant York, the highest grossing movie in 1941, didn't win Best Picture. But what did? How Green Is My Valley, a John Ford movie, which is not considered nearly as good as either of these two, won Best Picture anyway. So this is, I believe, Howard Hawks directed this. And what's so great about this story, a couple of things is great about the story, based on a true story, of course. Alvin York, he was a bit of a drunk and got into bar fights and all this stuff, and a bit of a troublemaker. And then something happens and he converts to Christianity and becomes he doesn't believe in going to war. He's an objector, a conscientious objector, if I'm saying that right. And so he becomes a guy who believes, war is murder, and the Bible says don't murder. So he kind of tries to get out of being drafted in the war, but he ends up getting drafted anyway. So here you get a guy who doesn't want to kill, and he's converted to Christianity and all this, and which is a great scene. My favorite scene in the movie is it's the conversion part. Of course, being a Christian myself, I get very emotional at those kind of scenes, and done very, very well. And Gary Cooper does a really good job in this movie. But and then the first half of the movie is really him, his conversion to Christianity. The second half movie is World War One, when he's in World War One. Anyways, and what's so cool about the story is that, yeah, he's a guy who doesn't believe in war, doesn't believe in killing, but yet does his duty and helps save a lot of lives by capturing a lot of troops, because he's a very good shot, because he was a really good hunter, because he grew up like in Kentucky or Tennessee, so he grew up a hunter, and so he's really good at shooting. And because of his good shooting, he was able to capture a lot of enemy troops. And even though he didn't want to kill, he wanted to save lives, and he saw that by killing the enemy, he could save lives. Anyway, so really cool, I think, story, and very uplifting. I guess a lot of religious stuff in here as well, though it's a Hollywood movie. It's not a Christian movie by any chance, but very good, adaptation of a war hero that he was very involved in what he wanted the story to be. So they made him happy when they did this movie. And yeah, it's such a just wonderful movie, very uplifting. Like I said, I love the story. And the ending is just like a very happy ending. I love the happy ending of it anyways. But yeah, definitely check that out if you haven't. Sergeant York, really, really good movie. All right, number one, if you know me, you should know what my number one's going to be. Always, forever, It's a Wonderful Life. Another Christmas classic, you can say. Pretty good for this time period, since we're getting to the Christmas time. What can you say? I've talked so much about this movie. Just love it. I've seen it so many times, and I still watch it every year. Still get as much out of it. It's funny. It's super dramatic. Some great dramatic moments. It's one of the best scripts probably ever written, I think, or stories written. I love the whole story idea. Jimmy Stewart gives such a great performance. This came out the same year as The Best Years of Our Lives. Best Year of Our Lives won a lot of the Oscars. I think this should have won like Best Picture, Best Actor for Jimmy Stewart, amongst others, because he gives, I think, the best performance of his life here. You got Donna Reed here, of course. Frank Capra, one of my favorite directors. Love his style of directing here. But yeah, so much to say. I don't have time to say it. Just maybe the most heartfelt, uplifting movie I've ever seen in my life. And the ending makes me cry every time. I see this all the time. Every time I see it, I cry. I can't stop crying when that moment when he gets his life back, and then everybody's all his friends are giving him money to help him out. Oh, such a wonderful moment. Just absolutely love that. And yeah, how can you not love this movie? I've heard some people say, "Oh, I don't care for it." I'm like, "How, man? How do you have a heart if you don't have a heart if you don't like that movie?" I'm being, I'm not serious about that, but still, it's like, it just warms my heart when I watch that movie. It's so good. Love it every time. Anyway, so yeah, It's a Wonderful Life. One of the greatest movies of all time. Definitely my favorite of the 1940s. So that was my top 10 favorite movies of the 1940s. I got done under 30 minutes is what I was trying to do here. And yeah, so feel free to tell me what you think about those movies, if you've seen them or heard any of them. If you haven't, will you check them out? Or say, talk about any of your movies that you like from the 1940s. Love to read any of your comments, and I appreciate that. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for liking it. And thank you to all my subscribers for supporting the channel. I hope you have a good day. Appreciate it.